Acast powers the world's best podcasts. Here's a show that we recommend.
What do you do when no one else is watching? What do you do that makes you happy for no reason at all? What are you obsessed with? I'm Leslie Arfin, and I'm a writer, but I'm also a dancer, a painter, a vapor, a dollhouse enthusiast, and basically just an overall hobbyist. My podcast, Filling the Void, is all about what other people are fanatically into. We talk about hobbies, even if you don't have one.
Listen to Filling the Void on Tuesdays on the Arios Network and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
Acast helps creators launch, grow, and monetize their podcasts everywhere. Acast.com.
Hi, it's Dave here. This is my wife, Kathy.
Hello.
This is the Cinemile, the podcast where we record our walk home from the movies. Today we're driving, and Kathy's holding the microphone, so God knows what this audio is going to be like later.
And I have, we haven't recorded an episode in a while because we kind of each had COVID at different intervals, and so we were supposed to go to Avatar a few weeks ago when it came out. We couldn't go because of COVID. Then Dave has gone without me and is now coming again.
I recovered from COVID, was testing negative, and so we thought, look, why don't I go, and then when you're better, you can go. So I went to see this last week. Avatar: The Way of Water is what we're talking about. And then Kathy's free, and she was like, okay, I'm finally going to go to Avatar. And I was like, I think I'll go to Avatar as well.
Why are you coming again?
I don't know. Well, I guess I must have liked it. It is by no means the best film ever, but I don't know, it's a real experience at the cinema, right?
Well, I don't know, I haven't seen it yet, so don't spoil it for me.
Well, it's it's going to be a big cinematic spectacle. It's a big 3D high frame rate event. This is probably the only last time I'll ever see it in this format, which I was very impressed by the visuals of it.
I can't wait for the visuals. Yeah. And also Dave and I love James Cameron movies, so while I truly have zero interest in this film, because James Cameron made it, I know it's going to be good, and well, I hope it's going to be good, and I am really interested in seeing the technology, like bringing 3D back again. Haven't seen a 3D movie in quite some time.
This movie looks incredible, and I'm looking forward to. I mean, look, the story is very familiar.
Save it for after.
Okay, I'll save it for after. But I will say up front, and this goes for anyone who's listening to this and hasn't seen the movie yet and is thinking about it. This is for your benefit, Kathy. There are a few things you need to know about the first Avatar going into this, which you definitely don't remember because it was 13 years ago. You haven't seen it since, and you have a terrible memory for movies, right?
So spoilers now for Avatar 1.
Spoilers for the first Avatar. Okay, so
only tell me things I need to know.
Couple of things you need to know. Firstly,
they're blue.
They're blue people. You remember the basic plot of Avatar, right? I don't need to explain that, right? No, you don't remember it.
No, you don't need to explain it.
Oh, don't need to explain it. Okay. Do you remember the bad guy, Stephen Lang?
No.
Okay, there was the bad guy. He was like the evil colonel dude. He has the big confrontation with Jake Sully at the end of the first film, and he dies. Okay? The bad guy dies. And Jake Sully leaves his body behind and becomes a permanent Na'vi. Okay? Also, Sigourney Weaver, who was another scientist, who was a good guy, dies in the first one, but kind of becomes one with the mother tree god or something.
Please stop, you're turning me off the film.
These are the things you need to remember going into this movie. Okay?
Okay.
Are you pumped?
You've unpumped me for this movie.
Well, here's the thing. In my first time I watched this, I spent maybe the first 45 minutes to an hour thinking, this is a chore, I hate it. I hate this movie. And then it just kind of I just got into it. And then by the end, I think I kind of loved it. It's very entertaining.
I'm very
I think you'll like it, Kathy.
I'm overwhelmed and stressed by the duration of it, and
but it's never boring. It's a James Cameron action movie. It is long, but it's never boring.
Look, I'm going to withhold judgment until we've seen it, but I just want to say in advance that the duration has properly stressed me out. Like, we're going to a 7 p.m. showing and we're going to get home at like midnight.
I know. I'm okay with it though. I mean, we waited 14 years for another James Cameron film.
You
I'll
say
take
waited.
every-
I wasn't waiting. I was quite happily watching like True Lies and Terminator and stuff.
Well, here's the thing. I wasn't ever excited for more Avatar, and it has become a bit of a sort of a cultural joke now to be like, who wants these movies? And everyone's laughing at the fact that there's 4 of these. 2 of them are in the can already, planned. But what I was genuinely excited for is just the return of James Cameron, because I think he is an incredible singular filmmaker who makes movies at a scale that no one else is making them at. There's a fantastic GQ article with him, a profile that was released recently, which I recommend everyone read. And he says in that, I told the execs the only way this thing is even gonna break even or be worth doing more sequels is if it's in the top 3 highest grossing films of all time. That's his aim. He's not even aiming to make a profit. It has to be one of the biggest, greatest whatever films of all time, and he's done that before several times. So I'm kind of I'm kind of rooting for him.
I
Even
just
though
wish,
he's a narcissist.
James Cameron's so creative, right? He's such a creative guy that I feel like it's an awful shame to end the last 40 years of his career on Avatar.
But that's all he wants to do. He wants to...
Shame for us, I mean.
He wants to go into the depths of the ocean in submarines and make Avatar movies.
Yeah.
That's all he's interested in. So
anyway.
you either get Avatar or you get no James Cameron movie.
Anyway, we will be back soon. Well, I say soon, I mean in approximately 5 hours to talk about this movie.
We did have to drive because we're going to the biggest screen that's available in Cork in Mahon Point Cinema.
Yeah.
Or Mahon Point Shopping Centre.
So we shall be there soon. Can't wait to see it. I hope it's brilliant. The fact that you're coming again gives me confidence. And see you soon.
Don't get your hopes up too much, alright?
Bye.
Bye.
The way of water connects all things. Before your birth and after your death.
This is our home!
I need you with me. And I need you to be strong. Strongheart.
Okay, we're out of Avatar: The Way of Water, and I can't believe you sat through that film twice. Are you okay?
I like it. It did feel longer the second time. It feels longer when you know what's happening.
I was enjoying it, and then I
tired.
looked at my watch and I was like, oh my god, there's an hour and a half left, and I nearly had a panic attack. Not to put aside the length for a second and just say good things about the movie.
So no spoilers.
No
as
spoilers,
always.
yeah, until we get to
So-
Spoiler Street. But just kind of briefly, I mean, it looks incredible. I'm really glad we saw it in 3D. I'm surprised there weren't more 3D screenings. There seem to be a lot of 2D ones.
So what did you think of the 3D high frame rate? Did you notice that? How smooth everything was?
It looked amazing. Yeah, it was incredible.
Yeah.
It looked really, really beautiful. And I was sitting next to a kid who was probably 11, so probably had never actually seen a 3D film in cinema, because we were just commenting to ourselves how you never see them anymore, whereas there was a period 8 years ago where everything was in 3D. And that kid was putting her hand out and oohing and eyeing, and that was
cute.
really fun. Yeah. So yeah,
I think this movie is squarely aimed at 13-year-olds.
it looks great, but I don't know, because she was blatantly bored halfway through as
Oh,
well,
really?
and talking to her mom, and there's nothing to hold your attention, I think. And I guess I was glad you kind of explained a few things to me about the first one, but I guess it's a funny film to watch because you don't particularly care for the characters. For a long time I couldn't tell any of them apart. It took me ages to even be able to tell who was who. And it just, from memory, I don't really remember the first one, but I feel like this one has a slightly better plot. I feel like maybe the story is a bit more interesting in this one.
We'll talk about that in spoilers.
Yeah, I think the story was interesting and more interesting than I remember the previous one being. But that being said, it did not sustain whatever the film was, 3.5 hours in terms of plot. And I I definitely felt a bit of an emotional impact from it. But I was just gobsmacked. I was watching. Why is Kate Winslet in this film? Like, if I hadn't been told she was in it, I would have never known she was in it. Like, I don't understand the point of casting famous actors in a film like this.
Actually, she had a really hard time working with James Cameron on Titanic as well, so I think I'm surprised that she came back.
I just don't get, like, I was just watching the film being like, it looks beautiful, like it's truly, truly beautiful, and I love films that draw people back to the cinema, and I'm really glad that he is bringing bums on seats in cinemas and like creating a cinematic experience. But that's like all intellectual, like when I'm actually watching it, I'm like, it's boring. And
so you were bored. See, I was not bored. I've watched it twice now, and I have many problems with the movie, but being bored is not one of them.
Between the like hour and a half, 2 hour mark, I find it extremely tedious, and then it ramped up. At the beginning, I loved it. The middle, it really lagged. Yeah, but there's so much to look at. But after a while, my brain got used to looking at that stuff, and I was just like, I suddenly felt panic. Like I felt like I was trapped underwater for another hour and a half with these characters. And I don't like scuba diving or anything like that, and I am asthmatic and get short of breath, and I just felt panicked being there.
Can we tell people that you actually had your inhaler with you?
I had my inhaler. I was like coughing during the film. And I
get that. Whereas we went scuba diving together before you knew you were asthmatic, and I just loved it. I absolutely. So I particularly liked the underwater scenes.
It did make me laugh at how much it showed up. Black Panther 2 underwater scenes.
Yes.
Like, how embarrassing to be the director of that film.
Absolutely.
And bring it out a month before this.
Ryan Coogler is a great director, but and look, we'll go listen to our thoughts on that. But I think it was, as we said, it was a very deliberate choice to make it more realistic, because he shot it it's dark. Like, it's dark under the water. Like, that's a fact. But it's just grimy and boring and smudgy, and everything's brown and it's ugly. This film was like obviously not realistic, but it's an alien planet, but like it is reminiscent of our oceans, but it's just so incredibly colourful and beautiful.
It's incredible.
The 3D and the high frame rate adds depth. Now back to the Kate Winslet. Why is Kate Winslet in this? Why did, and this is a question everyone will level at this, why do you hire Kate Winslet to hide behind a CG performance? But what I will say is that all I can judge is the result of that movie, and I think that the result is seamless to me. That is one of the best. Like, that is what we just watched is an animated film. It is like 99% animated, right? But it is people, animators, professional visual effects people animating over performances, and that makes a huge difference to the facial gestures, to the way someone moves underwater. And if you don't have that as a foundation, the eye knows the difference if it was just to be completely animated from
I
scratch.
think it looks brilliant.
So I think I think putting them in a tank, now I don't know what the reason is for them to hold their breath for 7 minutes at a time, whatever, but having actors who are good actors, right, very experienced actors, put on suits and actually act with each other, it's there on screen.
I think what I'm more interested in is I'd love to watch a half hour like behind the scenes on this, and I think that would probably be more interesting than the film itself.
I'd like to watch a 3 hour behind the scenes and I will. So like I really liked watching this again.
Are you going to go for a third time?
No, I don't think so. I'm really tired now. But the I'll say the things I liked about this film, and then we'll get into spoiler street, right? I think I said it earlier. There's just like the scale that this film is operating at is just sensational. It's very old school. I liked that it was like a comfort watch in that it's the kind of simplistic storytelling of big blockbusters of the 80s and 90s, right? And that is a double-edged sword, because this film has no nuance. It has no characters with depth, or like
you say Jake Sully doesn't have depth.
It's just like
fathers protect their sons.
You could go to town on it for like reinforcing traditional patriarchal notions and things like that, and I will not defend any of that. But it is like it's a film directed by a 60-something old man and written by him and several others. So yeah, it's just old school. It's like a Mel Gibson Braveheart era things where men are
Inexcusably
men
bad.
and the teenage boys are rebellious and
But
look after your sisters.
inexcusably bad voiceover work, though, as in voiceover
Oh, the
script.
narration is terrible. Look, so there is a lot wrong with this film, but it's like, to me, all that it's all just really old school, fundamental, basic, bare bones, basic bitch storytelling. But like, if I can park all that, it's effective, and the emotional beats are then effective. And I am a father, excuse me, and we have a family, so a lot of that stuff is just gonna hit home at a certain level. So, and I'll talk about the things that I think are kind of wrong with the movie in Spoiler Street. No, there's one thing I'll talk about before Spoiler Street. My biggest issue, the thing that I bump against in this movie so much, is not like the clearly like none of it's real. Like I think the world is so well realized.
looks real,
I
yeah.
believed all of it, and I believe that these characters, these CG characters, you spend. Like, to think that I watched The Phantom Menace 20 years ago and, like, Jar Jar Binks was a thing. And now, like, we're watching entire movies with believable creatures, whatever. But not all that I'm fine with. What really bumped me up was just the dialogue of the teenagers, who are the main characters of this movie, which does feel like they were written by a 60-something-year-old man and could have used the
voiced by
punch-up.
old people, too.
Yeah, so basically, this is a sample of the dialogue from the teenagers in any moment. They're like, bro, that was insane. Hey, cuz, so good to see you, bro. So that was like, they were one step away from saying that was wizard. Like, I just felt like I felt like it's like if you sent me into a group of Gen Zs and asked me to speak their language, that's what it would sound like. Like,
Yeah.
it did not feel authentic. If they had said bro or cuz one more time to each other, I would have lost my mind.
It's also very strange because the kids are like native Navi indigenous people, right? But then the kids, their accents are all over the place. Like, there's no consistency in how anyone's speaking. I was also really confused that Zoe Saldana's character was in it, and realised I'm actually getting her mixed up with her character in Avengers.
Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, and I was like, what am I watching? And I thought, if Sam Worthington only makes Avatar movies, but Zoe Saldana,
She only paints herself in different colours. And
is she in Star Wars as
she's
well?
in Star Trek.
So she's in
Uhura.
Star Trek, she's in Marvel, and she's in Avatar. That's huge blockbusters.
Yeah.
Like, she must just be back to back.
And
in
she's
these
good.
Insane films.
One problem I have with this movie is they sidelined her. She's pretty sidelined.
Well, both parents are, though, to be fair, because as you said, it's about the teenagers.
Yes, but she's more sidelined than Jake Sully, so they made way more room for him, even though she's way more interesting than him.
Yeah, she's way more interesting.
Yeah.
I couldn't even remember. Actually, do you know what? Let's go to Spoiler Street
Yeah,
now.
let's go to Spoiler Street.
Let's go to Spoiler Street.
So,
Okay.
like, Kathy, would you recommend it to people? Though? I think people should see this in cinemas. It is long, but look, I think it's got broad family appeal. I think it would work for teenagers, 11, 12-year-olds. It's exciting. It's got adventure. It's got villains who are villains. Do you know what I mean?
I would say, like, yeah, but, like, we went at 7 p.m. and that's too late already. So I would say,
Yeah, see it during the day.
if you can get, like, earlier in the day, and, like, I don't think any kid under 12 could watch it because I think it's too long. I actually just don't think they could sit through it with any level of interest. And I do think, like, I cannot believe they've made another one already. I can't imagine.
See the can, baby.
I don't think I could sit through another one. I don't think I'd watch another one.
I just want to see how it all
No.
pulls together.
I just don't care.
Or leads into two more movies.
Like, this film had an ending. Like, I don't understand what I liked. Okay, actually, one thing I wanted to say, what I did like before Spoiler Street, I love the underwater stuff, and that we're seeing in different parts of Navi. So before, we've obviously seen, like, the forest, Navi, what's the place called? Sorry, Pandora. And now we're seeing, like, underwater Pandora, right?
Yeah, and it was nice experiencing a sort of the differences between these two cultures.
So I really enjoyed that.
And,
So I think,
the biology, how they would have evolved differently.
yeah, so I think there's a lot to mine in the world. What I'm not interested in, like, the world is so cool, right? I'm very happily sit in the world, explore the world, see how the different creatures look and interact. I don't care to see this family again. Like, I'm done with Jake Sully. Like, I'm good. So
But Kathy, the Sullys stick together.
the thought of coming back to watch another plot with this group is dull as anything.
But they're obviously. Do you think they're gonna? Is he gonna steal from his his rival and superior product, Avatar: The Last Airbender? And are they going to do because that had different books,
I was
and it
thinking
was
this one,
air,
fire.
water,
Yeah, I was
fire.
thinking the same.
So are they going? Yeah, is it
I
the
think he'll have
way
to-
of air, the way of fire?
I think the next one's like they live in volcanoes.
Yeah.
But
The volcano Navi.
I loved the shift to the water world because it would have been really dull if they'd stayed in the forest world. But other than that, I can't.
Plus,
Anyway.
it's what James Cameron loves and obsessed with, and so he basically got to combine all his passions, underwater and Avatar, into one
Titanic.
movie. So and Titanic, yeah, there's Titanic stuff in this.
But
So,
the other thing is, what
fair play
I
to
find
him.
it weird about these movies is, his other films, say Terminator, it's got such a long life because you can watch it at any point, and we watched it actually relatively recently for our Patreon and loved it. What's so weird is that this has no life outside of a cinema. Why would you watch this film at home?
Yeah.
Why would you watch it in
I
2D? Why would you watch it on a small
And I
screen?
know I just watched it twice, but I did it for the cinema experience.
Yeah.
I'd never throw this on of an afternoon.
I can't see, the way
You'd
so
never
much,
watch it if it was,
so
on
much money is
telly.
made back after the cinema on streaming services, DVD sales, all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
If James Cameron needs this to be the third highest grossing movie of all time in the current climate when it's really difficult to get people in cinema.
And the other thing to say is
Don't
I
see
just
it.
don't think it can capture the imaginations of people now as it could in 2009, because our attention spans are more, there's way more things to watch. There's
But also
TV
it's just
shows
not new.
and movies and
we've
everything.
all seen Avatar already.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
not exciting. I know he's changed it and it's water and not forest, but
It was
still
just
blue
it was a
people.
big event in 2009, but now we have Game of Thrones and Stranger Things. They're the things that capture people's imaginations.
I think
right?
if Glass Onion had actually been in the cinemas, it would have given this such a run for its money. So anyway,
I don't know about a run for its money, but it would have eaten away a bit. Yeah.
it would have.
it
Now
couldn't
that being said,
compete at that level.
the cinema we were in today, it was on at least 6 screens at the same time as we got there, so it's definitely pulling in money.
We
But there's
watched Glass Onion today as well. We're having a great day. We'll cover that later.
But there's just nothing else to watch in the cinema, so I don't know if it's because there was nothing else to release or is everyone steering clear of Avatar, but that will be helping it.
Yeah, we're nearly home. Should we talk about
Nearly
some
home.
spoilers?
On to Spoiler Street.
So spoilers now
Spoilers. Turn away if you don't want to
for
know
the two
spoilers.
Avatar movies.
What
maybe
annoyed-
Titanic.
The main thing that annoyed me about this film that absolutely infuriated me, sorry, 2 things.
Go on.
The first one is that Sigourney Weaver, a 70-year-old woman,
Yes,
is
playing
the
a
voice.
17-year-old.
Is the voice
Well,
of
if a
a teenager.
60-something-year-old man can write bro and cuz, then sure, Sigourney Weaver can be a
It
teenager.
was so every time she spoke, it was disorientating. It was jarring. The character was really manic pixie dream, teenage mope, annoying, emo. I
gotta
couldn't
say,
stand the teenage girl.
I think all your criticisms are just and valid, but I kind of liked Kiri or whatever she was called. She was likable.
I liked at the end when she had her fairy wings on and directed all the
Oh my god,
the
that was
fish.
beautiful. All the
just-
colourful luminescent
It just
fish.
annoyed. It was why does Sigourney I get that it's supposed to be her daughter or her reincarnation or something, but why did Sigourney Weaver need to be in this film? And give a teenage actress a go. That stuff just annoys me. And then the other thing that really annoyed
She's
me,
our mysterious daughter.
the kid, the human kid,
Oh, Spider, yeah.
who
Now
was,
that
white kid with dreadlocks and who seems to have this tiny oxygen mask that has infinite oxygen. This thing
Yeah.
makes no sense. By the end of this film, the kid isn't living around any other humans anymore. He just seems to live in this water world. Where is he getting the oxygen top
what you
up?
talking about, cuz?
So unless he's going to get that winged thing is going to live on his back or something, this kid is not long for this world. But the thing that annoyed me most,
on.
infuriated me and just made me roll my eyes up to heavens, why did he rescue that avatar of his dead dad whose dedicated mission is to kill Spider's family
Yeah.
and will not stop until he's killed them?
I think Spider just couldn't let him. Look, I agree.
He's not even a sentient being.
It's a clear it's a decision that you're looking at, like an audience, obviously saying don't do that. But he couldn't let him die, and I thought the movie did somewhat of a good job of establishing that he had built a rapport with Blue Stephen Lang.
Yeah, but it's his fault that his best mate, that brother, died. He's actively destroying this family that is his adopted family.
Yes, but also there was a few other moments which they seed in. One, he he sees Jake and Neytiri in a new light in that video early on of his actual father's death, where he sees them a little bit bloodthirsty. 2, he sees her and gets scared of her, and then she holds him to ransom. And then also the blue Stephen Lang, I forget his name, Quidditch or something. It was Quidditch. Quaritch. He lets Kiri go to save Spider's life. So he does express some sort of emotional connection with Spider.
Yeah, but he's just a brain chip in an avatar's body. Like, he's not a person.
Oh, wow. You want to get into this? Because he has a personality, right?
But he's dead. His dad's dead, though. This is just like a computer that has memories.
But he's formed a relationship with the blue avatar of his dead dad, like.
And then the other thing that annoyed me
and he calls him son at the end.
For a film that's 3.5 hours long, they certainly left out a massive piece of plot, which is where they kidnap Spider. Edie Falcon, who I enjoyed in it, is like torturing him, and then the bad guy's like, no, he'll come with me.
Was that who that was?
Yeah, and then the bad guy's like, oh, he'll come with me. And then next thing, him and Spider are like flying in the air, searching all the oceanic plains for the family, and I'm like, how do they know the family have gone there?
Yeah.
They actually skipped a whole bit of plot then, and I was like, well, if you're going to make me sit here for this long, I want every fucking
Well, no,
plot
they
point.
know they've gone to the ocean because they get that rogue, beacon from the helicopter when the scientists go to help.
But that annoyed me too. When they phoned the scientists to come and help their daughter, why didn't they ask the native people of the water to help them first? And secondly, how do they have contact with them?
Because Jake Sully has radio comms.
But they've, by all accounts, travelled thousands of miles.
But it's human technology. They've conquered.
I guess
worlds.
that stuff just really annoyed me.
I'm okay with that stuff. What annoys me is that the plot, like, well, just to pick up on that bit where Spider goes off with them, and then Quaritch has this whole thing where he's like, we must eat the Na'vi food, speak the language, do the thing, and then they don't do any of that. They're like, they tame the wild beasts, but then they just storm into villages in their military outfits and just like burn people's houses down for no reason. It's just like, so it's just like, aren't we
not undercover?
Shouldn't you be experiencing? Yeah, show us you actually doing any of that stuff, and then go eventually. And maybe this is what's going to happen in Avatar 5.
Oh,
go on the journey that Jake Sully went in the first one, and actually discover that the local indigenous people are nice and interesting.
I guess it's supposed to be like a representation or a metaphor for the American soldiers in Vietnam and what they used to do to the locals. That's kind of the vibe I was getting.
Amongst other things, and the Native Americans and the British, and look, this movie Avatar 1 has been criticised to no end over the past 10 years for being like a rehash of Pocahontas and like whatever,
the
like
white saviors.
but like, and yeah, those are valid criticisms, but like that's like just like these stories need to be told. I think, and like fine, but like don't criticize. Like every story is based on, a lot of stories are derivative of other stories. That's fine. Like we use templates and mythologies all the time.
Yeah, but if you're going to make the most expensive film ever made, I actually don't think you can be aping other plots and be too lazy to come up with your own plot.
No, yeah, and look, I'll set it at the top. I don't think this has anything going for it from a story perspective. But I will say, and I said the same thing about Don't Look Up, which also got just like mercilessly skewered by critics for being too obvious and on the nose. But if this is going to be, Avatar was one of the biggest movies of all time. This is going to make huge bucks and reach a load of people. If you want to shoehorn in a very fucking on the nose, obvious ecological message, which is slapping you over the face,
there's no ecological message in this film.
Yes, there is. Human beings are coming in from the very beginning, destroying forests, killing whales, not paying attention to indigenous creatures, destroying ecospheres.
I don't think that was the message of this film at all.
What?
They never went to any lengths to do any of that. I thought this was an anti-war film.
Well, yeah, sure, there's that
and
as well.
anti-arriving in other people's lands and trying to colonize them.
This movie is very much like, look at the beauty of nature. These people are in touch with nature and balance and harmonious, and we, human beings, are the bad guys.
I I don't think he was making that overt a point, though. I just don't even think he went there. The other thing that made me
What?
laugh...
How are we on such? I'm like, it was so obvious that it's slapping people over the head, and you're like, it's
No,
it's
I
not
think
what he
what's
was doing.
obvious is that James Cameron has got too much money and is so self-indulgent now that he just, I want to make a film that's set in the water. I'll pay little to no attention to the plot. I won't have any overt messages, and I just want to focus on like kids swimming around on backs of whales and stuff. And I just think he's become too self-indulgent, and I think like when it literally turned into the final act of Titanic, I was like, he's not even being original now, he's just dipping into his own back catalogue. Like, it was fully the lower decks of Titanic for 20 minutes.
Yeah, very much so. Look,
Like,
I
it
agree
just
with
felt
that.
like that just felt lazy to me. Like, okay, grand, you've done it before, can you do something different? Like, I think
Okay, look,
the
here's
third
the thing.
one's in the can. If I don't think the fourth and fifth will ever see the light of day.
I would be surprised if we got there. Yeah.
I just can't see why. Even
I
if,
think by the
like,
time we got to a third, it would run out of steam.
Yeah.
Like there was. Yeah, I think.
like, there's been a fair enough gap between these two, so there's like some level of interest again. But the other one, if it's already shot, will presumably come out soon enough. And then it's like,
I'll be there. I'll go twice.
there's no episode left. But I'm really disappointed. This is where James Cameron's ending his career. I think it's an awful shame. I think it looks beautiful, and that's cool. But like, I just think it's an awful shame. Like, I can't believe this is the man who made Terminator.
But did he ever his stories were always very kind of basic and simple.
Like,
anyway,
he's creative and
he
he's
was
doing different stuff. Like, I can't believe. Like,
he's always
this
been
is
a
like the
he's always been a
equivalent-
visual. He's never been renowned for his storytelling. I would say. I think he's.
no, but I'm saying just
brilliant
to make the same
visual
film over and over
storyteller.
again. Like, that's so boring.
Yeah, there's a lot of retreads between this and the first one. Like, it's
Yeah.
basically, instead of the first one is Jake Sully human enters community, and this is a valid criticism which has been leveled at it. The sort of white savior thing, you know. It's like a human being enters indigenous colony, masters it. This is like Tom Cruise in The Last Samurai. Masters it better than anyone has ever in the quickest time possible. Becomes their leader, which he is in this movie. I'm like, why isn't Natiri their leader?
Yeah, it doesn't make
why
any
is
sense.
Jake Sully the leader?
Was Naturi a human before? Was she always?
No, she was.
She's always
yeah,
Navi.
she's always Navi.
Okay.
But then this movie is Jake Sully and family do the exact same thing with a water tribe, and they were
Yeah.
like, "You can't master our ways," and then cut to montage and. They're
And
better
then
than anyone
the
else.
implication that Sigourney Weaver was like assaulted while she's in a coma.
No, I'm very much on the Immaculate Conception.
Same,
Um,
but it was
bandwagon,
very strange. Like,
Yeah.
and I think there's just something weird about a director who's like, he very famously has worked with Sigourney Weaver and Kate Winslet before.
Yeah.
Digging into the back catalogue of actors gets really dull for me as well. Like,
But it's Sigourney Weaver, as you've never seen her before. as a 17-year-old girl. What more do you want?
I'd love to know what our listeners think of this.
Me
It's
too.
such
I
a
think
waste of time.
you're the first person I've spoken to about this movie because we've had COVID and I haven't seen anybody else who's seen it. So yeah, talk to us, guys. Very keen to hear your thoughts. I can see people. I completely get why this wouldn't vibe with you or with anyone else. I don't think it is. I can see someone saying, "Look, this is shit storytelling. This is 3.5 hours long. What's the point?"
Yeah.
But for me, it just worked for me because
And all
I
the
just want
technology-
I just want to sit back, look at pretty stuff, be entertained, on a massive scale.
I want to sit
And I
back and be
admired it.
entertained too. And there's I think there's truly no way to keep the pace of a movie that's this long.
Well,
Like,
here's the
bit
thing.
that's really good. There's a bit of this movie that I thought was brilliant, and I loved it, which was the battle scene with the giant whale who's the outcast, who's like, well, if I'm going to be an outcast anyway, I'm going out swinging.
Yeah, and
that whale
he knocks
attacking
that
those
ship down. It was
humans
awesome.
because of those awful men who've been hunting all the whales.
Plus
stuff was-
Jermaine Clemens for some
Yeah,
reason.
that stuff was epic.
Yeah.
And when they were like, oh, we take this like liquid out of the whale and that gives infinite human life, I was like, wait, this is all really interesting. Like, I was really into it then.
Yeah.
So I'm not at all saying there weren't bits I didn't enjoy, because I actually did enjoy most of the film.
There were some great set pieces.
It's more that it's like, it's lesser than the sum of its parts. By the end, when you pick it apart,
Well,
you're like, okay, there was some good bits in
I
it.
agree. It's very thin on story. Like
Yeah.
the story this is literally the story. Kids get kidnapped. Kids get rescued. Kids get kidnapped.
Yeah.
some kids get rescued. Those kids go back to get the other kids. Now they get kidnapped.
Yeah.
Like there's literally the movie makes fun of itself when the cute little girl
She's
goes
so
like,
cute.
I'm handcuffed again. It's like,
And then it takes, even though
just-
they all say
it's
I see
very
you
repetitive.
to each other, it takes Jake the whole movie to truly see his son. But
yeah,
like,
I never saw you until now.
but there's loads of bits that are good. The end product I don't get. It's interesting that you think there's an ecological message. I didn't even get that. Like, I came
Wow.
out of the cinema being
How
like,
do you
what
not
was
get
the
that?
point of that other than James Cameron showing off his water technology?
Yeah.
Which, granted, is very lovely.
No, I mean, it looked incredible.
Yeah, it's incredible
Like the
looking.
water stuff.
I feel like in the first movie, which was obviously a long time ago, I'd love to not sit through it all again in the cinema, but see a bit of it again in the cinema to remind
compare
myself
them.
how it looked. I feel like in the first film, it was very obvious who the actors were. Whereas in this film, I would never have known it was Zoe Saldana. I feel like they were less like themselves in this film.
I think she looks pretty much the same. She would
No, I think if you put them up side by side now, I'd say they look quite different. Like, this is so advanced.
Yeah, but I mean, it would have looked like Zoe Saldana. I don't know.
Yes,
The character would have looked the same.
I also think I'm getting
more
mixed up
advanced.
between her in Guardians of the Galaxy and her in Star Trek. Like, it's getting very confusing.
Yeah.
She seems to play very similar characters.
Well, to be fair, in Guardians of the Galaxy, she's just wearing makeup. Like, she's not a CG character.
Yeah, true.
Right,
Anyway, we
we
should
better
go.
leave it there.
Thank you,
So-
everyone, for listening. Please message us what you thought on we're at the cinemile@gmail.com or the Cinemile on Twitter or Instagram or Letterboxd, or come over to patreon.com/cinemile.
Yeah, we're
And
about to watch Cool Runnings.
Yeah, Cool Runnings is our December movie watch. Can't wait for that.
Yeah.
Really can't wait for that.
And our end of year reviews are coming up
Yeah.
next. So we're going to record them in a couple of days.
Yeah, film
And
and
we'll
TV.
hopefully, we've watched Glass Onion, so we'll do something on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
I see you.
I see you.
Acast powers the world's best podcasts. Here's a show that we recommend.
Hey, I'm Kim Holderness.
And I'm Ben Holderness.
We host the Holderness Family Podcast every Tuesday.
You may know us from the silly videos that we make online.
Or a book about marriage called Everybody Fights.
Or as winners of season 33 of The Amazing Race.
Still can't believe that happened. Listen, we do a lot of stuff, but our podcast is our most favorite thing.
Yeah, because every week we get to sit down face to face, talk to each other about marriage, family, mental health, or just anything that we want to know more about.
Sometimes we have expert interviews, sometimes it's just us, but our goal is to bring some joy and laughter into your life every week.
Our other goal is that maybe you will learn something as well.
Right, so search the Holderness Family Podcast and check out our most recent episodes. We have one about staying organized with creators of the Home Edit.
And one about being diagnosed with ADHD as an adult.
We hope you'll join us.
Acast helps creators launch, grow, and monetize their podcasts everywhere. Acast.com.